Good afternoon. I will call the River Trust meeting of, what is it, December 20th, isn't it? December 20th to order. And I was just looking at the minutes I have. What do I have here? Do I got the wrong agenda?
You don't have an agenda.
No wonder. I looked at the minutes I got. It's October 25th. What? Is that the last? That is the last meeting we had, isn't it? There we go. Thank you, Mr. Manager. I'm just a little disorganized over here. I'm flustered.
The pressure.
It's pressure. That's what it is. Okay, now I'm ready.
We just get you trained, you're going to release.
Yeah, that's it. You got it. You got it. Well, the first thing is to receive update on Oklahoma City Riverfront Redevelopment Authority committee activities, and I don't think we have any, do we? The committee? Thank you. Any same thing on subcommittee? We don't. The next item would be the minutes, and it is October 25th, 2011. Our minutes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Anybody have any changes or corrections? And record your vote, please. Yep. Thank you very much. The consent docket, we have two items: the sand mining and oil and gas report, and the corridor events update. So that'd be items 4A and B. Been moved and seconded. Anybody have any questions or comments on those? Record your vote. Approved unanimously. Thank you. Primary agenda items: receive update on Maps 3 Oklahoma River projects. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Trust. I have an update regarding several of the MAPS 3 projects that are underway at the river. One of the more primary I'm going to provide a few slides to today is the Oklahoma River Racecourse improvements, and this is the one that we actually started somewhat early and has the most progress made. And so I'm going to start with this one first, and I'll give you some updates on some of the other activities that are going on in the MAPS 3. This was a presentation that was given to the advisory board last Thursday, and the project overview, as you recall, we're looking at a 1,000-meter race course. This would be permanent night race lighting. The base bid you can see here is looking at a 20-foot candle system. There's several alternates that have been identified, and there's been some discussion on this since the meeting last Thursday about how the alternate should be arranged. So I'm going to get to those in just a moment, but the final plans are nearly complete. There are some changes that are being made. The update to you is to hopefully answer any questions that you have, but we are prepared to take this to the City Council in January to get it advertised for bids and then to actually get the actual numbers in hand so that we can make decisions on what to actually construct. As conceived by the engineer, this was by Garver Engineers, includes conduits and spares and 20-foot candle system. This is all in the base bid for the project. We're looking at it being completely expandable, so that at some point where the lighting levels may want to be increased, they can. We're also looking at it being still computer operated so that the lighting can be operated remotely. And I think some of the early presentations that you saw, they can do controls from the finish line tower. They could do controls from other various locations along the race course. But in this base bid, it does not include the higher intensity lighting. So one of the budget considerations is that as they've gone through the process and they've looked at the cost of lighting 1,000 meters, the original $3 million budget appears to provide what you see in front of you today. The alternates then would provide for enhancements, but that would be at a higher cost. This is a layout of that race course. You'll see that there are two poles that are on the west side near the finish line that are designated as heavy-duty poles. The reason that these are being designated heavy-duty in the base bid is because these are going to be set back to improve the sight lines of the boathouses and the finish line tower that have already been constructed. There is a second alternate that's being considered to set back the remaining number of the poles on the north side of the river that would enhance sight lines for future boathouses that might be constructed as well. And so that is something that's under consideration, but at this time it's not included in the budget. You'll notice there's a new item that's being added to the PowerPoint this month. There's an OG&E power surcharge of about $580,000. We've been in negotiations with OG&E for several months. And one of the concerns that they have is that they can't be guaranteed a lighting schedule. They're not sure how much power will be used, and so it's very hard for them to accurately depict what future billings might be. And with that, there's some resistance to pushing forward and actually installing a lot of the high voltage wire, the transformers, and all the locations along both banks at zero cost to OG&E. So we're looking at 4 different options. The option that you have before you today is one where the city would consider purchasing the lighting system completely. and then it would go into a normal billing mode. There are some other options where if we could guarantee some minimum monthly usage levels, or if we could come up with some other billing structures, we might be able to reduce that cost. Today, no decisions have been made. This is something that we can defer for now. We'll bring back an OG&E agreement to the city for consideration on something that we think is in the best interest of the organization as a whole. The heavy-duty poles that I mentioned, these again would come along the north side of the race course. This would be in the vicinity of the existing boathouses, and this is one of the alternates that's being considered. To do that is approximately $987,000 to upgrade all of the north side poles to that heavy-duty standard. This would also allow for future light fixtures to be hung on and increasing the lighting levels, and so it's a high-priority alternate to make sure that the river lighting system is expandable. Alternate number 2 is the setback that I described. This actually comes at a minimal cost, you'll see, of $29,700. This is because the heavy-duty poles take care of the majority of the load when we talk about the cost. The fact that the pole is bigger allows it to be moved back. This simply increases the height of a couple of those poles. Alternate number 3 and alternate number 4, and I'll finish these two, are where we would increase the lighting levels. And some of the discussion that we've heard from the MAPS 3 subcommittee, what was also discussed at the advisory board meeting last month, there's not a specific desire to completely upgrade the lighting along the entire race course. It's desirable to have higher lighting intensities near the finish line, so perhaps something of a 70-foot candle option that would extend maybe for 100 or 200 meters from finish down the course. We could then look at a 40-foot candle level from, say, 200 to 500 meters, and that the 20-foot candles would be sufficient from 500 to 1,000. And so the upgrades that you see here are for 70-foot candles for the first 200 meters of the race course. This would be from the finish line back. That's about $253,000. There's some additional circuits that are included with that, additional equipment. And alternate number 4, you'll see, increases it to 40-foot candles from 200 to 500 meters. And that's an additional $278,000. What I would describe here is that we have a series of alternates that's going to give the MAPS 3 advisory board, it's going to give the city council complete flexibility on how they would like to award the project. Some of the other discussions that were held were whether or not we should actually upgrade the race course for, say, just the first 500 meters and not consider building the second 500 meters at this time. We've left all of those options on the table, but we do have nearly a complete set of plans that will be prepared to go out to bids in January, and we should have more information in the February timeframe. So with that, the schedule that we're looking at, there have been some coordination and legal issues that had to be addressed by the engineer. You'll notice those on line number 4 of this schedule, and we are finishing up those now in anticipation of wrapping that up in January. There was an original hope to have the lighting available for early summer, but that does not appear this is going to be possible. It's going to be more towards the middle of the summer, so we've experienced probably somewhere between a 60 and a 90-day delay. But you can see at the bottom, we actually look to install the lights next summer and have those available for full use by the September-October timeframe. So the lighting project is the most significant project that's underway right now with the race course. We have a windscreen study that's being commented on by staff. That was performed by Rand Elliott and Associates. The subcommittee has yet to receive that information. We would expect that they would have that in January. We have a couple of other projects that are actually coming up very quickly. Also in regard to MAPS 3, we have the race course starting system. There is an RFP underway. This is a part of the additional phases of MAPS 3 that are included in the overall package. We also have the Regatta Park site study. This would be for the whitewater course that's underway. We should have a report on that early next year as well. So several things are moving forward. When we look at the general timeline of MAPS 3, we've got several projects that were started in 2011 that will finish in 2012. Those would be the Phase 1 projects of the lighting primarily and also the windscreens. You can expect to see the race course improvements in 2012, and then the largest of the projects would be the whitewater. We expect to advertise that late next year and to have that fully operational by late 14, early 15. And again, that's the things that you could expect over the next couple of years. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about MAPS 3.
Eric, one of the things we talked about at the meeting the other day was the alternate for potentially 600 meters. Is that going to be part of the package, or what's the thought on that?
So we discussed that in the meeting last week with the advisory board, and they did receive the recommendation from the subcommittee. They asked that that be taken into consideration before the final plans are prepared. And so that's something that the engineer can do. Whether we want to look at the 500 meter or the 600 meter option is kind of that cutoff point. I think we're going to have that be determined by the budget. So as we go through and look at that second option,
That'll most likely be an option that when it goes out to bid, is that what you're saying?
that's what we're anticipating. So with that coming from the subcommittee just last week, the engineer just needed some more time to evaluate it. But it is intent to incorporate as many options as possible for the council to consider.
Was there also discussion and maybe Gary answered this better, but was there discussion also about what we heard at the subcommittee was that we had about $8 million for lighting and windscreens, and apparently the windscreen is going to be, was estimated to be, I guess, at about $5 million, where the lighting was estimated at $3 million, that's coming up the $8 million. What was the thought on what happens to the windscreen?
I think what we're actually looking at is we'll look at the river projects as a whole. When we look at the $60 million budget that was assigned for the river as part of MAPS 3, we'll be working against that total. And so if there is a decision to award the lighting for more than its budget of $3 million, we'll be using the river budget itself fully. It would have some effect on some of the later projects most likely, but that's a decision that we'll make at that time. I don't see at this point that we have enough information on the windscreens to decide. We just need more time with the report and the consultant to really get a better estimate of cost on the windscreen.
Gary, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gary.
On the OG&E surcharge, today was the first time I heard you use the phrase, "we'll be purchasing that equipment." Does that mean that, and I assume you're talking about the transformers and the wiring and everything else, does that mean in the future the city is going to be responsible for replacing those transformers?
No, I don't believe that's so. This is just an upcharge for OG&E to provide that initial level of service.
So we're simply reimbursing OG&E for the cost of that equipment is what's going on.
Normally,
Not necessarily going to be owned by the city.
no, it wouldn't be owned by the city. It's just a surcharge. And so I think there's some other credits that are included in that number. That's the cost to the city to bring the service on a normal development. That service would be free. But when they project services for residential or commercial or other developments, there's a very good record that they have of what the recovery time frame is. The issue here is that they don't know how many years it will take to recover this cost for the lighting, just not knowing what its usage rate will be. So it's just a value that they've proposed to us, and we're still working through that, but it's just an upcharge. But no ownership. They would still maintain. No, that's not. They would still have responsibility for all that.
Meg?
You know, if I could, I did have a couple of questions, and one of them was yours with regard to making sure that the shorter track is also available as we go out to bid, that we don't just bid 1,000 feet, that we offer some alternatives. And Mike, is 600 feet the right distance?
We saw that as a good compromise. You would have your 500-meter race and then a little bit of area for staging.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't certain. Is 500 feet is kind of a standard race, one of the standards, and so 600 would cover it pretty well. Okay. And I guess my second comment maybe is with regard to that OG&E surcharge, and I think when this presentation was made to council, there was a comment that I think bears a little more conversation, and that was that in a normal situation, that 500 and whatever number it is would be amortized through the regular billing cycle, and that perhaps this shouldn't be a MAPS charge and come out of the MAPS budget, because in a normal circumstance, it would come out of general operating funds or come out of the regular operations of the river. Does that make any sense?
I mean, I think if we wanted to go to OG&E and say, can you add this as a surcharge of the monthly bill, they would probably work with us on that. I think what we're trying to do is balance the capital costs and the operating costs, as we oftentimes do on a MAPS project. We need to have some further just conversation with OG&E and see what.
That's a big surprise. That's a big chunk. That's a really kind of a big surprise, I guess. And my third thing is, what is the budget for the windscreens currently in the original programming?
The budget that was advertised to the consultant was $1.5 million. But that budget was before we knew that we have significant foundation requirements, and so the study that has been recently drafted, submitted to staff, is a much more significant number than that. It's in the $5 million range or greater. depending on what level of windscreen we'd like to adopt. But we're just not completely through that report, so I'd like to allow staff more time to review that and come back with options.
Okay, but when we originally put that $60 million package together, the windscreen number was 1.5.
Yes, it was.
So we're looking at other options and looking at some other contingency funds or things.
Yes, and the implementation plan that was adopted by council actually adjusted that budget upwards. So the windscreen and the lighting together is about an $8 million combined phase. So it was already increased once as a part of the adoption of the implementation plan. So there's been some adjustments made there, but I would say that there's still some level of concern that we need to make sure that we've protected that budget.
But we then, because of the adjusted budget, are looking at roughly $5 million.
So the total combined between the lighting
combined.
and the windscreen is budgeted at 8.
Okay.
So the more you spend on lighting, the less perhaps you might be able to spend on windscreen or another project.
Great. I think flexibility, it seems like flexibility is the order of the day here, because we know that when we put all these things together, it wasn't an exact science. And I think my only, I guess my perspective is that I'd like to get smaller lighting and have the best we possibly can, and possibly shorter windscreen and the best we possibly can, rather than more at a lesser quality. And that's just my opinion.
Larry?
As you gyrate with these numbers, Eric, will there be enough money in there to do a first-class whitewater facility?
We haven't started design yet, but yes, that would be the intent. So we feel that the budget that has been identified in the plan will have a first-class whitewater facility.
You said intent. That's not the same as...
Well, and let me preface that. I mean, these
I
projects
think the key down there has got to be the whitewater. I mean, I think that's right. Would you agree? I mean, that's going to be the tourist attraction plus the training facility for the kayak and canoe, which we basically, I won't say promised, but yeah, we promised them. And to get to the end and not have it, I mean, it almost looks to me like the subcommittee, or maybe even the MAPS committee, maybe ought to reprioritize some things and make sure we get what we want, make sure it's done, and then work on the other stuff later. I just don't like the idea of being over budget several $1 million before you ever start, because if I think the revenues are doing pretty well, but if for some reason they don't do well, I mean, we're kind of...
Well, yeah, it's a 7-year, 9-month program, so it's going to be up and down in the revenues. Right now, we're in an up period, but that won't last forever. I think we probably know that. The budget that we have set with the implementation plan, we've got an $8 million number for the lighting and the windscreen, and we're trying to keep it within that. I mean, yeah, we've talked about some of those challenges today to keep it within that. We do have a budget set aside for the whitewater course, too, that we're very comfortable at the time we set the implementation plan. At this point in time, ADG is doing a site review study down there to verify whether or not the whitewater course will work in the site, to the north and east of the boathouse down there. And so that's where we're at right now. And they're going to offer an opinion that if we choose that site, this is what we're going to have to build for construction of the whitewater course, and it's going to look like this. And then based upon that, we'll have some direction whether that site works, and that's the best place to go forward with that. There's some operational efficiencies. There are some undefined or unquantifiable benefits of having the whitewater course close to the Devon Boathouse and the other facilities that are down there. And so they're trying to accommodate that, believing there's also some again, operational efficiencies in the operation of the facilities together, and so that's what we're looking at. But if we come back and say that it's too small, the sewer line's too big a problem, the cost of the property is too much, then we're going to have to take a look at other options. And that's not what's being said at this point in time. Right now, they're looking at it and they're still doing their due diligence on the site that's there.
I think the other thing to just maybe mention is that the river projects and maps are all unique. I mean, there isn't a lot of experience that we can go on in other cities that have built, 1,000-meter lighting racecourse amenities and windscreens, and there are some whitewater parks for us to model, but even then, as we make the fit for Oklahoma River, it's different, and so we're protecting our options. We're making sure that we have contingencies available in the project and the program side, and again, it is fully our intent to make sure that we have world-class facilities on the Oklahoma River, but we're having to take small steps to get there.
And the list of cities that have done windscreens is even shorter.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Kathy.
What is the budget for the whitewater?
I don't have that by
45,
memory.
I think. Is that,
You know, the implementation plan made some adjustments, and we broke out costs for soft costs and construction costs. I can get that to you. I just don't have that
I
today.
think is it 45? Does that sound right? Is that too high, Mike?
It's not that.
35, okay, it's 35, okay.
You know, in all fair, I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that when this package was put together, the numbers weren't very clearly scrutinized or, you know, probably looked at as carefully in as much detail as we needed to. And so, you know, I think we know, as in all these other projects, we've had to adjust, we've had to be flexible, and, you know, try to identify the best use of our dollars. But we also made commitments to the voters, and so there's a really delicate balance. And so I know you're helping Eric guide everybody to the best alternatives, but let's just keep our eye on the first-class ball, because it needs to really be done in the right way.
Thank you. Any other questions? Eric? Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Need a motion to receive the report? Been moved and seconded. Any further comments? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Item 8B is the unaudited financial statements ending October 31st, 2011. Is there a second? Moved and second that we receive. Anybody have any comments on them, questions? Please record your vote. It's approved unanimously. The next is our audited financial statements through June 30th, 2011. Been moved and seconded. Anybody have any questions, comments? Please record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Next item is quarterly meeting of stakeholders that report in your packet. Do you have anything you want to add to it, Pat? You want to just receive it? Or?
Unless there are any questions.
Anybody got any questions on it? Only thing, not a question, but it looks like there was a lot of discussion about the equestrian facility.
Good discussion and well attended. I know trustees, both Mars and McAtee were present. County Commissioner Mon was there, and we've since heard from Councilman Greenwell that he has an interest in beginning to come to some of these sessions as well. So the group is gaining.
Okay, good. Need a motion to receive then? Been moved and seconded. Any other questions? Record your vote. Approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Receive report on cancellation of agreement with Sure Beats Walking LLC. It's kind of been through ups and downs, hasn't it?
We've had a lot of private enterprises that have worked out really well. This just isn't one of them.
This isn't one of them. So I think the motion would be to receive the report, and there will not be any segue tours, at least for the time being. Then move and second. Any questions? For your vote, it's approved unanimously. Next is item F, kind of F, G, and A really all are tied together. I had a question on the first one. The last paragraph is probably just a Marcia thing. By that I mean
We have a lot of those.
a Marcia thing. It says, if the studio defaults on the purchase agreement, the city and the and leadership OKC shall work cooperatively to ensure the completion and installation of the sculpture. What the thought there? I mean, if they get halfway through building it and the sculptor decides he doesn't want to finish it, or it's costing more than he thought, he's not getting paid. What's
LOKC is going to give us the $400,000 up front.
right?
And then the city is entering into the contract with the fabricator.
Right.
And within that agreement has all the conditions to complete the statute and get it installed. And if we run into trouble and say the fabricator couldn't do it or they refuse to do it, then we will consult with LOKC and to enforce the terms of the contract between the city and the fabricator. Does that answer your question?
Sort of.
Well,
Are you worried about the fabricator?
No, we are not worried about it, but
Okay.
we're a conduit.
Right.
These aren't our funds, and we're out there trying to do that. So
No, I
what
understand.
we're doing is saying that, okay, if this thing goes south, LOKC, this isn't really our funds that are out there. We wouldn't have the normal guarantees we had because it's our funds. So if this thing goes south, we're going to work with you to try to remedy the situation.
But they don't, you're shaking your head, you must know, that nobody's worried about the sculptor or the...
no, there's no concern that I've been made aware of.
Just wanted, I just...
It's
well,
just that we've...
thought maybe he was...
The main issue, the main problem was it's 3 separate agreements, so we've had to incorporate other people's desires
Just
within.
make it note that Kathy is guaranteed that this will be... that will be
We can put in the minutes that she got it.
Where is it being manufactured? Where is it being made?
I was kind of
Kathy?
sure that's what it was. I just want...
Norman? Oh, in New York.
Well, look, she kept saying no concern. So the sculpture's out of California?
No, it was in New York.
Well, that even scares me more.
It should.
Can be fabricated?
Okay.
Where's it going to be fabricated?
It's fabricated in California, but the artist lives in New York.
There we go.
Is the answer.
We got 2 great states. We got the best of both worlds, left coast and right coast. No, Gee,
Nationwide.
okay, good luck. I mean, I like the statue. I think it's neat and all that. I just hope we
In
get...
all seriousness, what I heard you say, Jim, is the city is not on the hook for any financial obligation in this deal.
We tried to make that clear in the
I just wanted to
agreement.
make sure, because I heard...
Marcia did, in all seriousness, Marcia did, I think, a really good job of trying to protect the city's interests.
I wasn't worried about that. I was more worried about what happens if it doesn't get completed. You know, the worst thing you could have would be half a circle rather than the whole circle. That's, and kind of read this, I didn't know. You really got to have faith that whoever we're getting the money, that they're going to complete the project. I would hope they will, and I'm sure they probably will, but if something would happen, you end up with half a project.
The contract provides that he will return all the funds plus $25,000.
Just as soon as you go to court in New York and get it.
No, we're going to do it in Oklahoma.
You go prosecute, you got it here for...
And you,
Okay, good
Yes.
for you. Okay. Okay, no problem, okay. Why don't we take items F, G, and H all together? Is that okay with the motion? Okay. Need a motion that's doing all 3 things that all related to this. Is there a second? Been moved and seconded? Is there any further discussion? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item I is revised Boathouse District Master Plan, which you have in your packet. I think you have a black and white, then you also have a color.
Mr. Chairman and trustees, this is an update to a master plan that you considered and approved a couple of years ago. In that period of time, the Boathouse District has grown both in intensity and in size, and a number of new projects have come forward that need to be considered, several of which are ancillary to the MAPS program, some of which have simply come about as a result of demand for the facilities, and then a fundraising program that is ongoing that is allowing, through the Boathouse Foundation and its group of benefactors, to come forward with a number of projects. The zip line, for example, is one of those. So you should see in the overlay that's provided in your packets a pretty good idea of what is proposed. In order to move forward on some of these projects, we need to have the master plan updated to reflect that this board has considered it. Mike Knopp is here and is available to answer any questions, provide additional detail if you wish. but staff recommends approval.
Yeah, Mike.
I'll just quickly go through some of the components that are before you with the master plan enhancements. What we did here is we took the master plan that we've been working with and added some labels to sort of demonstrate the types of activities and attractions that we're developing as we see the Boathouse District becoming really a premier spot for our community to enjoy, and also tourists. And so each one of the facilities has and that was the way this was originally envisioned, that all of the facilities work together and add a certain unique element to the experience down there, rather than them all working independently. And so it really began with the Chesapeake Boathouse, and really tried to emphasize there how even the Oklahoma River cruisers are a part of this big picture. But with the connection into from Bricktown, the new entrance in on Lincoln, we have really a really unique opportunity. So with the Chesapeake Boathouse, it really is defined as the community boathouse, as it always has been. We're actually doing quite a bit of renovations that begin in January, about $400,000 worth of improvements that will enhance the ability for the general public to come in, rent kayaks, rent bikes, have various different educational programs, and really just generally be refreshed for the future. So that'll be done this year with, again, the bike rentals, the kayak rentals. Everything is completely open to the public there. The Finish Line Tower is really seen as sort of that iconic visitor center. This is where you begin your experience at the river. You come, you sign up for a class, you get involved in a tour that originates from there, and there's you buy a Coke or whatever, so it's a good starting point. The Devon Boathouse fits into this in that it's the Olympic training site. It's the high-performance center, and there will be interactive programs in there utilizing the dynamic rowing tank, seeing the Olympic athletes in action, tours that go on, really something very unique that goes on in that building that we'll share with the public. In the middle of all this are dragon boat experiences. Groups can come out anytime and get involved, school groups. This is going to be part of the program that goes on. In fact, certain times of the day, anybody can come down and get in one of those boats. The UCO Boathouse, CHK Central Boathouse, offering something very unique with the music venue that is proposed in the art gallery, making good progress with that boathouse. We expect to have some good news on that here in the near future. The next up is the new playground that was built a couple of months ago, kind of a first phase of that, adds a children's activity into the middle mix of that, and you see north of that is the sculpture that we were just discussing. Further east is the new youth pavilion, which we're very excited about. Made a major announcement a couple of weeks ago with regard to Blue Cross Blue Shield coming on board with that project. It will have a 700-foot zip line, which will go across the river and back, is proposed. A sky trail, which is really a modern version of a rope course. It's the latest technology utilized to kind of give people that ropes course experience, but it's very safe and accommodates a lot of people. What's exciting about these projects is they were originally conceived to be within the Whitewater project. So this is an example of how we're finding private funds to augment what has already been done or planned to be done publicly through the projects, as with all the other boathouse projects. The youth pavilion, we're going to have, it looks like it's now about a $6 million project. It's very significant. It will have a large space for all of our youth programming, kind of an expo-like center in that for events and traveling exhibits, and then be a major source of centerpiece during the regattas. The Sky Trail, again, I'll show some images here in a minute, and there's a couple other features that are under development with the Youth Pavilion. We expect a big announcement on that to come here real soon. North of the sculpture, I want to point that out because there's a mountain bike area. We've talked to ODOT about this concept of using some areas that really aren't suitable for much else, but do something that is complementary to the area. Again, mountain biking is sort of like the parallel that Whitewater is to Flatwater whitewater kayaking to flatwater kayaking. You've got the cycling and now the mountain biking. This would be a short pump track, which is a very exciting small area for people that want to go off-road bicycling. We've looked at other communities that have been very popular in, and so we want to incorporate that into this project. Next up is the OU Boathouse, working with them and making some very significant progress there. We're excited to soon report on. It'll be a unique feature there as well. And then, of course, the proposed site of the Whitewater Center and an additional to-be-announced facility that could accommodate the river-based activities and whitewater activities, perhaps with other features in there as well, you know, whether it's a restaurant or a gift shop, that kind of thing, outdoor store. So, and going through, you see the images you've all seen, and we have currently a lot of different, there's actually a studio in the Finish Line Tower that will be incorporated into all of this, the dragon boating, the tours that will go on in the Devon Boathouse, and then the Sky Trail. This is the latest image of that. It incorporates the ropes course-like features, the rock climbing. You see a rock climbing wall, the zip line. Pretty exciting development. This is an example of one that is in Tennessee. What makes this unique is you're continuously belayed in that you hook in at the bottom and you go up through a series of different courses over, you know, tight ropes and, you know, bridges and all kinds of different features. High adventure element, but it's, again, very safe. The youth pavilion, similar to the Devon Boathouse, although it's all open. We're actually looking at a plan to enclose more of it, so it's more, we can use it all year round. Some more images. And an example of why the need is so great there. We have these very large, fast-growing, youth-oriented programs. We need a big space for that. The zip line will incorporate a tower on the south bank, and you'll go across, zip across, climb back up a little higher, and then zip back right over the tip of the youth pavilion. So it'll be an incredible, probably one of the coolest zip line experiences that you can have going over this this venue. So, and that's a view from the UCO Boathouse area, and then you see how the playground orients with that facility, with and of course the Kaboom Playground, which was open a couple months ago. So. Anyway, that's the latest development with the master plan. We've got a lot of great momentum, a lot of new support coming our way, and we're really excited about that. As Mr. Wenger had indicated, we did start with the MAPS projects hopefully real soon, but I did want to mention one thing. We probably have started with the most complicated of all the projects, and further down the road, some of the other projects that are staged later are a little bit more defined in that they're like a grandstand or a scoreboard, so you really know what you're dealing with there. So anyway, thank you for the time. If there's any questions.
Anybody have any questions? No? Looks good. Need a motion to receive then? Been moved and seconded. Would you vote? It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Next we have claims. We need to ratify through the emergency the claims docket that we didn't do on October the the November meeting, I guess it was. Yeah, the November meeting, and then approve the regular claims docket. So you have two claims docket. Do we need an emergency on the first one, or is that? Just ratify both of them? Okay. Is that on both of them? Yep. Then move and second with both. Any questions? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Any additional items? Staff have anything? Jeannie, anything? Good Christmas season on the cruisers?
We had a very nice season, a good December. We've got about 8 or 10 charters left now, all the way up through New Year's, and we're already in pre-planning for next season, starting with our very successful Valentine's Day cruise, which last year we had to cancel due to ice, and so we're hoping this year it won't be quite so bad, because that's generally a very successful event for us. But we're hard at getting everything together for next year, closing out this year.
Thank you.
The river cruisers were a winner in the holiday parade this morning. We gave out those awards.
Did you decorate those?
OKC Events donated $20,000 and
they
redecorated all three of our river cruisers, which is why we got the
That-
first
that's
place, I'm
neat.
sure.
Good. Thank you. Anything from, well, the director's report, we have to receive it. Any comments on that? Anybody?
Well, actually, most of what was in that report we've dealt with some actual agenda items today, so if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but, I think the only thing we didn't touch on in an actual item this time around was the Zone G Canal extension. Mike mentioned it. It's underway. We've got some final engineering going back, again, trying to get it into the budget that's available. Should have something within the next month or so, and hopefully bring that for this board to take a look at and ultimately go on to mayor and council. Otherwise, if there's any questions, be happy to address them, and if not, then just ask that the report be received as submitted.
Okay. Need a motion? Been moved and seconded. Any additional comments? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Anything from trustees? Comments? Staff? Citizens? We're adjourned. Thank you.